Let's welcome him. Off today. Good evening,
Good
Mr. Leon
evening.
Guerrero. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
I have to say before we start here, I like the beard. I'm trying to grow one myself. Um, Looks great. I don't know. It's hard to do, isn't it? I don't know. It's
No,
hard for me anyway.
it's
No, but
real easy for
it's
me. All I have to do is stop shaving. That's the reason I
well, it looks
grow a
good.
beard.
Oh, it looks great on you. It looks great on you. Thank you for joining us tonight. You ready to go?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you got your 1 minute, Mr. Ken Leon Guerrero, number nine. It's all yours.
After 12 years as a community advocate, standing up before three different administrations at Adelie, four different legislatures, and dozens of agencies, boards, and commissions, as a community advocate, and I stood up and represented the people of Guam. Many times I go into these meetings or public hearings, and it would be me and 15 other government of Guam officials talking about something that was going to have a very serious impact on the quality of life of the people. Now, with my campaign, I want to take my 12 years of community advocacy experience and knowledge and take it from the public hearing rooms to the floor of the legislature, where I will continue to advocate for the benefit of the people of Guam and make sure any legislation coming in that door is going to be there to serve the people first.
Okay, and actually, how I see you too is kind of like the gatekeeper, right? You're the watchdog. I've come to find that nothing can get by you as far as government's concerned. Am I right about that?
Well, I've been battling many things. We talked about the waste energy plant that was going to take 360 million taxpayer dollars and give it to a company that never built a waste energy plant. And we didn't generate enough waste to make it work. It was going to cost the taxpayers $54 million a year to over and above the operations of the solid waste division. It wasn't
Okay,
viable.
well, that's just one of many things I'm sure you're
One
gonna
of
you're gonna
many.
go into, right? One of many. Okay, so we're gonna get into the questions. Okay, so we're
Okay.
gonna go into the questions. You have your time, so let's go in. First question: if you had the opportunity to amend or repeal an existing mandate, which one would that be and why? So again, if you had the opportunity to amend or repeal an existing mandate, which one would it be and why?
It would be Bill 30 that was the first bill passed by the 35th Guam legislature. It was pure pork barrel. It was a bill that violated government of Guam procurement regulations. It ended up costing taxpayers about $30 million. So let me talk about what that $30 million didn't do. By diverting this $30 million into a private, what I call corporate welfare program, we we that's $30 million that didn't go into fixing GMH, didn't go into improving our health care, didn't go into roads or infrastructure, didn't do anything to make our island safer or our roads better. It's $30 million diverted away from the general revenue fund directly into private hands. I would repeal that bill.
Okay, all right, pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward. So we'll keep it rolling if you don't
Oh,
mind. Number two, if elected, what is the first action you will pursue to address economic recovery? So, what is the first action you will do to pursue economic recovery, to address the issue?
well, the first thing I would do would be to introduce legislation that would restrict the governor's ability to keep rolling over emergency uh, health declarations 30 days after 30 days after 30 days. Because what we're doing right here is we're strangling our economy. It's bad enough we shut down the tourism industry, but our numbers don't justify the additional damage being inflicted on the economy. As a result of these never ending executive orders shutting down the economy, we've lost hundreds of small businesses that will never be coming back. And we've pushed thousands of families deep into poverty that will take decades to recover from when it wasn't necessary. Our numbers don't justify it.
Oh, yes, I for one agree with that. And by the way, you are aware that it was just extended
Yes, that's
today.
why I brought it up as number one, because In the bill that I would introduce, the governor would get one 30-day emergency declaration, and any declaration after that would be by consent of the legislature. That way, the people have a chance to weigh in. This new emergency order is one step short of martial law because now she's with Section 2 of the emergency order, she's waiving the Administrative Adjudication Act. She's given the government power to create, the governor the power to create laws that she feels are necessary and to ignore laws that she feels are not necessary. This is very similar when she tried to pass a bill in March that gave her the ability to fine someone $5,000 or put them in jail for violation of any executive order.
Yeah, you're right about that. It's short of martial law. Yeah, I don't know. I throw my hands up on that one.
Hey,
But
remember, I'm the one that filed a lawsuit in federal court when she put up the roadblocks because I couldn't get the attorney general to do anything. So but
that's
that's
all
another
other
question.
that's all other issue. So we're gonna move on to number three. We're moving on to number three here. Um, Mr. Ken Leon Guerrero, do you believe there is an adequate level of checks and balances between the current legislature and the executive branch? Sorry,
You haven't been
sorry.
following my Facebook posts, my
But no, I have. I
op-eds,
have.
or
That's why I'm struggling getting through the question. But so I'm just gonna go to the second part here. If elected, what actions will you pursue to ensure such accountability exists?
well, the first thing I would do is I would introduce a bill I call the Corrupt Practices Act, which is kind of like RICO, but it allows citizens to file lawsuits against the government for violation of law, policy, or procedure that costs taxpayers money. Because this lack of transparency is costing taxpayers a lot of money. When we're issuing millions of dollars of contracts without bids, without quotes, without even signatures on the documents, that's a violation of procurement law. Someone should be held accountable for that, but we don't have an attorney general. We have a puppet.
Sorry, I kind of have to laugh because I'm asking Ken Leon Guerrero if there's checks and balances in our current government. Sorry, I just had to laugh about that one. So I'm just gonna go to number four. Number four. Um, okay, what do you believe is the number one pressing issue on our island? And if elected, how will you address it? So the number one pressing issue.
The number one issue is the economy. It's always the economy. Because when you don't have a functioning economy, you don't have any money to fund the mission of the government. We don't have money for public safety. We don't have any money for public health. We don't have money for education. Right now, we're in the middle of an economic meltdown. And as a result, we're seeing thousands of people out of work. We're seeing the crime rates going up. We have a healthcare crisis. We had a healthcare crisis before we had the pandemic. And the pandemic has just aggravated the healthcare crisis we have. And our public education system right now, our children have lost a year of their education and development. And they're not going to get that year back. But if we don't fix the economy, we don't have the money to do the three things that the government is mandated to do. So we need to fix the economy. And we do that by starting locally. You know, if we open up the local economy and do it smart. Now, most businesses are doing it smart. I remember that brief window of time when we were able to go to businesses, and most of them were doing it right. We didn't see any infection numbers ramp up in the businesses that were doing it right. We saw it where people were taking liberties and shortcuts. And those are the businesses that need to be punished, not every single business on the island like we're doing right now.
Right, and wouldn't you agree that it's in the best interest of businesses to protect their customers, right?
Yes, it is. It is definitely in the best interest, and that's why most businesses did. I mean, Happy Mart, one of the first places I went to after this, I mean, they practically have their staff in hazmat suits. You know, I mean, they had the goggles, they had the shields, they had the mask, they had the gown, they had the gloves. You know, they looked like they were surgeons in a hazmat unit. But they are very, very safety conscious. I went to King's Restaurant. And at King's Restaurant, there was like 12 feet between tables, and they had tables blocked out. They sanitized, sterilized, paper menu. I mean, the businesses that want to stay open do it right. You go to Jeff's Pirates Cove, those tables got to be 10 to 15 feet apart, and it's open air. So a lot of businesses are doing it right. We don't need to punish the ones that are doing it right. And then we're cherry picking. I can't buy office supplies at National Office Supply, but I could buy them at Kmart. I couldn't buy underwear or clothes at Kmart, so I had to go off island. We have probably destroyed our retail industry with this lockdown, because when I lost a lot of weight, none of my clothes fit. I went to Kmart to buy clothes, and every single clothing aisle was blocked up. But you know what? I could buy alcohol, I could buy washing machines, I could buy air conditioners, but I couldn't buy clothes. No rhyme, no reason.
And so that actually brings me to my next question, which is going into the fun part of our questions here, because we've been kind of serious. Did have a chuckle about certain things. I want to ask you kind of off script a little bit. Speaking of which, you just mentioned you lost a lot of weight. You look really good. You look really trim. So I don't know if this question is going to apply, but I want to ask you anyway.
Okay.
What does Ken Leon Guerrero like to eat?
Oh, I
What
went
is his
on a
favorite
keto diet. So I'm eating, I mean, tonight we had chicken fried steak, grilled zucchinis, and mushrooms that were grilled in butter. So what I like to eat is what Dr. Ken Berry, he's a keto doctor, and he calls it the proper human diet. So and since March, I've lost 67 pounds since March. I've done it by changing my diet. And this is one of my passion points, because I don't know if you're aware of it, but in addition to being a community advocate, I was a member of the Non-Communicable Disease Consortium here on Guam, which is an
Okay.
organization of about 200 people from all walks of life and all professions that work together to try to make Guam a healthier place. Because here on Guam, our chronic disease rates are skyrocketing. You don't know any family that doesn't have someone with diabetes, cardiac disease, high blood pressure, or cancer, because they affect just about every family on the island. And those things are taking more and more tax revenues out of the general fund, because 75% of our people don't have health insurance. So we use the most expensive primary care physician on the island, which is Guam Memorial Emergency Room. So if I were to go to I got a cut on my finger. It was on a Sunday. If I'd been able to go to my doctor, the office visit would have been $85. But because it was to the bone, I freaked out. I went to the emergency room, and $800 later, all I got was a tetanus shot and a butterfly bandage. You know, but you see, that shows the difference between emergency care and preventive care. We have a public health system that has been ravaged by politicians for decades, and they're not able to they're not able to do their mission. I mean, look at the main building in Manilo. It's practically ready to be demolished because they didn't have enough money to maintain it, and they had a little tiny electrical fire, and now we've got a multi-million-dollar building sitting vacant, and we're renting tens of thousands of square feet of office space. So the taxpayers are taking a double hit there. But in the meantime, the chronic disease rates keep going up. We need to address our public health, because I mean, if we don't take care of our health, I mean, already we're seeing children as young as 15 years old dying of heart attacks. That is a serious problem here on this island.
Well, I'm with you on keto. That's how I lost a lot of my weight as well. So people of Guam, if you didn't know, lost all the weight on keto. Wow, 60 some pounds. Congratulations.
Yeah.
All right.
But the important thing about this is, I mean, public health is a very, very serious problem here on this island, because it consumes so much of a family's resources. prior to me losing the weight in November, I got 7 prescriptions at my November 2018 exam. Those 7 prescriptions, if I'd gotten them all filled, would have cost somewhere around $1,400 a month. And when you consider the fact that a majority of the people on our island don't have any health care, what they end up doing is they go to the emergency room when their condition gets so chronic that they are in crisis. And Ben Franklin said it best: a stitch in time saves 9. So we need to build up our public health care system so that we can get back to the point where the leading cause of death was accidents, not diabetes.
Right. Amen to that. So again, people of Guam, you didn't know before, Ken's on keto. Ken's on keto. So very good. So we're going to go back to your last question, and I've been reiterating this every night I've hosted, is for me the most important question, because there are 29, actually 28 if you count yourself, right? Other candidates out there. What makes Ken Leon Guerrero the standout candidate? Why do we vote for Ken Leon Guerrero above all the other candidates?
I have been standing up for the people of Guam for 12 years. I have taken on some tremendous challenges. I've taken on bond issues, corrupt politicians. I've taken on land grabs, money grabs, asset grabs. I've taken on, gambling. I've been involved in many of the key fights over the past 12 years that have taken place in the legislature, at the administration, at different boards and commissions. And I took those, I entered those fights as defending the people. So the reason why you would want to vote for me is you would want me to continue defending the people in the one forum where I would have the most ability to affect positive change. And that is on the floor of the legislature, because the legislature is where laws are created, policies are created, and budgets are created. I think the current legislature, the 35th, is insane. They passed the biggest budget in the history of Guam and the second biggest budget history in Guam. And they passed the second biggest budget history in Guam right in the middle of a pandemic, with our #1 industry shut down, 35,000 people out of work. And when we ask them, how do they plan to make this budget whole? They say, we're counting on federal assistance. Planning and hoping that the pandemic continues for another year is not what I call a sustainable plan for the people. I mean, the only reason government of Guam didn't go into the red in 2020 was because we had $1.3 billion drop into our economy. But in the November and January special economic sessions, things were looking bleak. So they're an ad loop, they're dancing a jig that we got the pandemic because we got the federal funds and we stopped the local government from going deep into the red. But we can't count on the federal government giving us another $1.6 billion next year. This budget should have reflected 2 things. It should have reflected the current state of our economy, and it should have reflected the fact that the governor still has not accounted for the money she has received from the federal government. If I'd been a senator in the 35th, I would have cut the budget by the amount of money she received until she accounted for it. Because that's where the legislature has the power to act, but the current bunch has refused to use the powers they do have. And that's why we need to see new people in the legislature, and we need to see a Republican legislature, because that's the only way we're going to have a loyal opposition. Right now, there's no loyal opposition. There's not even opposition. Right now, the governor told everybody in the 35th legislature, paint yourselves blue and jump up and down in front of the ad loop. 10 of them would rush right over and do it.
Wow, that's and I'm not going to disagree with you on that.
We saw it. We saw it happen. When people wanted to protest against the lockdown, Adelup had barriers put up and they forced the people to go and have their protest across the street on private property. But when Adelup wanted to have a Democrat Party event, they opened up the gates, they invited all the Democrats to come in and party like there's no tomorrow at Adelup. That's the problem.
Right. So people of Guam, you want accountability, you want checks and balances. We just want a fair government that protects us and has our best interests at heart. Am I right? So
Absolutely.
please
We want the government
consider.
to treat all the people the same.
So vote for number 9. He's on number 9 on the ballot, Leon Guerrero, and the Republican majority. Like he said, we need that checks and balance. Thank you so much, Leon Guerrero, for joining us.
Thank you very
Good
much
luck
for
to you,
having
sir.
me.
All right. God bless.
All right.
Good night.